Why the right will end this battle and will win. Why? This is actually very, very simple. A couple of reasons for this. One is that we have children. All right. When you have kids, you believe in the future. You believe the future. Inherently, if you're a father or mother, you're inherently not a narcissist because you want the best for your children and grandchildren, which means you're willing to sacrifice for them. Sacrifice financially, sacrifice from waking up at night to take care of your baby, all that stuff. But even when it hits the fan, you'll sacrifice your very life for the protection of your children and grandchildren. That's just a fact. Even if you're on the outside looking in and all the cool kids are staring at you and saying, tell your kids to get the jabby jab. You're like, I'm not doing that. But you'll be ostracized. You're like, I'm not doing it. I don't care. Ostracize as much as you want. We got God, family, country. That's it. Family comes number 2. I will do whatever I can to protect my children. Inherently, I'm not a narcissist. And that means future generations are going to benefit from your sacrifice. It's just a fact. We don't need the cool kid appreciation of the virtue signalers. The narcissists on the left who just all they care about is themselves, having good times and freaking virtue signaling how cool they are, how awesome they are in terms of fighting the man. We don't need that. We say, no, you can freaking virtue signal all day long. I'm fighting for my own children, dude. I'm fighting for the way of life for my kids. And as such, I don't need your emotional support. I don't. In fact, if anything, if you're on the other side of this, I don't want your emotional support, your thumbs up or anything like that, because all you care about is yourself. So because we have the children, we see the future for what it is, which is a sacrifice that you have to make to benefit your children. And we're always going to do that, no matter what. And that's the thing. Part 2 of this is because that we don't need, like I just said, to have the pats on the back from all the other virtual signalers. And it's easy to go along with the crowd, 100%. It's easy to go along with the crowd until the crowd starts turning on you. And this is where the leftists don't understand. Since basically Bill Clinton, the left has had free reign to just run amok without any pushback at all. Even under George W. Bush, no pushback at all, none whatsoever. Even on the first Trump term, no pushback at all. The left wing has been running ranshod, if that's the right word, for freaking decades. Absolutely with no pushback at all. And so the left feels, hey, I'm a narcissist. I can do this, get street cred from my fellow narcissists and look like I'm a freaking cool guy without any recourse at all. This is the first time they've ever had to suffer recourse, and essentially in my adulthood, ever. I don't know what it was on the 80s because I was off the left on the 80s. That's when I was a teen, so I didn't know what I was doing. They've never had to suffer recourse, ever, reprisals. We on the right, on the other hand, have had to suffer massive recourse for years and years and years. Culminated in the freaking St. George Floyd stuff and the COVID. We're used to it. We are used to it. So we're like, nah, dude, we've got the scars, and the scars have hardened up. They've become, the cuts have become scarred up, they've hardened up. We're like, dude, whatever. We don't need your social preening. We don't need that. We don't need your freaking thumbs up to make us feel like we're part of something special. No, we got our children we're going to protect. We've been on the outside looking in for years. They don't know what it's like. We do. And as such, we're more than able to stand firm, stand alone. Just look at Jenny McCarthy, perfect example. Here's a chick of the left, definitely. Hollywood left. Her son gets injured by something. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, Jenny McCarthy's saying, no, I got to speak out against this. And everybody makes fun of Jenny McCarthy. McCartney, whatever her name is. McCarthy, I don't know her name. You know what I'm talking. I did say, I made fun of her too. I said, oh, what an idiot, she knows science, all that. When your kids' futures are at stake and they're harmed, you don't care if you're the only person standing. You're going to freaking scream out to say, stop this madness. I'm telling you, man. And the funny thing is, people on the left think they got the moms. They might have the women, but they don't have the moms. When the moms feel their children are being threatened, man, the moms come out like Sarah Palin said, the mama bear. I'm telling you right now, man, when the moms feel their children's lives are at stake, their livelihoods are at stake, you'll find all of a sudden the biggest far left person you've ever seen in your world say, you go after my children, it's on. Even if that means she stands against the tide of insanity. My wife's a perfect example of that. My wife used to be somewhat left-wing, Catholic, but somewhat left-wing. When she started having kids and she found out the truth behind the J's, she's like, oh, hell no. She's far more right than I am in that regard. Part 3 is the funding. All All right, so the left wing has had funding for decades from USAID, the foundations, the universities, the federal government, from the freaking rich people. For decades, they've had unlimited funding. I've never understood why the Republicans never understood this. This is just the weirdest to me. We're funding our enemies, and not just our political enemies, our mortal enemies. The people literally want to see you dead, like we saw with Charlie Kirk. They want you DEED. Now that the funding, because Trump is going to start, is drying up, the left, they don't know what to do now. There isn't a group that's going to come in to save them, because the group that would normally come to save them has lost their funding by and large. And now you got to start going after foundations, the endowments, and things like this. That's what I would do if I was Republicans. I'd be going hard. It sounds like Trump is going to start doing this. We'll see. And I'll hold my breath until I see it. But it sounds like he's saying we're going to go after the funding sources of these left-wing agitators. And once the funding dries up, there's no more money in there. So that means if you truly lose your job because you're a scumbag narcissist, it's going to be harder and harder and harder to find a new one. Because there's no more money. Who's going to fund you? Well, I don't have the money to fund you anymore, freaking lunatic on the left. And then finally, we have the receipts. So back in the old days, you know, the weather underground and all this stuff, I mean, they could be rabble-rousers amongst themselves, but they didn't have anything that you could certainly prove later on that they were rioting and causing chaos in the streets or anything like that. Now we do. Now we got thumbprints, fingerprints. We got this stuff to show that friggin' Jimmy Smith over at frickin' University of Tucson was advocating the absolutely making Charlie Kirk deed. You see what I'm saying? Jimmy Smith wanted Charlie Kirk's deed. In the old days, that didn't track Jimmy Smith very heavily, if at all. Nowadays, it does. And so if I'm a dental office and I see Jimmy Smith coming to my office, want a job as a hygienist, I'm like, I'm going to look at the past, look him up on Google, and I'm going to say, Jimmy Smith, you advocated the deed of Charlie Kirk for what exactly? And he said, well, you know, that's 3 years ago. I've changed. And if I'm a guy in the dental and this guy's my dental hygienist, I'm like, I don't know if I want that as part of my business. I'm not going to hire you there, Jimmy Smith. I'll hire, Tammy freaking Johnson instead, because Tammy Johnson didn't have any of that stuff out there. You see what I'm saying? Now, that will make the left more radical, don't get me wrong, but that's just short-term stuff. The vast majority of left-wingers who right now think it's cool to be on the to be on the end because they're all the cool kids are going to turn around and say, we don't want anything to do with this. We're going to go and scurry behind our caves, in our caves and sit there and say, don't look at me. I didn't do anything. It's just the left-wing are so negative, so weak. With that said, we don't want to be these right-wingers say the left wing is a bunch of soy boys who don't know how to fire, who don't know firearms or anything like that. That's not true. The left wing is very organized. And the reason they're very organized is because they have the money, 100%. I'm just looking at the Marxists, the Bolsheviks, the Red Army factions, Shining Path. These are highly organized left-wing groups, and they do know how to use their firearms. And even though they might come across as soy boy trans people, a lot of these guys are actually quite proficient. They're quite organized, and they're quite deadly for sure. So don't make the mistake of thinking that they're a bunch of soy boys. You know what I'm saying? It's just not true. With that said, once the funding dries up, and once it's no longer cool to be on that side of things, they'll dry up as well. There's always going to be rabble-rousers, don't get me wrong. The IRA, the Klan, all these groups went too far, and they lost the street cred. People say, I don't want to do anything with you. You guys went too far. I kind of agreed with XYZ you were doing, but you've gone too far now, and I don't want anything to do with that. So what happens is now the same thing's going to happen to Antifa, and then they're going to be rounded up and thrown into prisons as well they should. And then your narcissists, the left-wing guys who only concern about is them will say, I'm backing up from that. I'm going to shut my mouth and just try to keep my job and move on. And that's why we're going to win, because we have the children. 100%. We have the kids because of the funding. Absolutely. The funding will dry up, and that we're not narcissistic like these people. And we've been on the outside for so long. We know how to deal with it. The left wing people have never faced pushback, and they're just going to freaking fold like a cheap suit once a few of them are made examples of. And I see that not freaking physically. I'm saying made examples of thrown in jail. All right, God, and maybe can't find work. All right, God bless. We'll see you.